Well, welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm CJ Ferry, and I'm doing this solo today as Chipper is at an important meeting regarding the failure or the presumed failure of the city's negotiations and implementation of the health insurance plan that it wanted to switch over to. As we know, the city wanted to go to GIC, but the GIC plan failed, and instead, they negotiated with Blue Cross Blue Shield to be the provider with a premium plan, but they don't have the money because, of course, we don't know where it went. So they're talking about numbers, and Chipper wants to bring you those numbers on our next show. So, Chip, good luck on that investigation, and please let us know. And now talking about some of Fall River's new and wonderful issues that are happening, and I think one of the things that we need to talk about, and this basically affects and has a strong impact on the Niagara neighborhood, which is Watuppa Heights. Prior to the taping of this show, our three state representatives and our state senator, Mike Rodrigues, were here taping their show, Voices from the Hill. And they spoke about this, and Alan Sylvia is definitely dead set against on allowing 50 units to be built there again. And to quote him, he says, we're going to create a new slum. And this is true. We are. We're just going to create more and more slums in Fall River. We exceed the 40D mandate, which says we have to have 10% of our housing as affordable. I'm not going to say low income. I'm going to say affordable. And there are, from what Representative Fiola said, there's about 42 communities in the state which meet or exceed the requirements of 40D. Well, that leaves, 309 communities that are below the 10% minimum. So, Governor Patrick, Department of Housing and Community Development, wake up. Stop making the other cities and towns suck up the 10%. Fall River's done its share. It's time that it stops. We can no longer afford the influx of the poor and undeserving, as they like to be called sometimes. I shouldn't say like to be called, but they are called that. I know for a fact that residents from Fall River have been imported here from other states because their housing authorities are paying them to move to Fall River, New Bedford, Lowell. I know many came here from Pennsylvania. Representative Sylvia said today that he knows of a new resident in Fall River who moved here with no job, no income, and got housing and everything he needed through the social service programs that we provide. This is Fall River's biggest problem. We are the social service mecca of the world. And it's sad because for a long time, and this started with Housing Authority Director Richard Viveris many moons ago, ads would be taken out across the country saying, come to Fall River, we'll give you welfare and housing, et cetera, et cetera. And so people did come. And it's time that we stop that. We want businesses. We don't want more burdens on our own society. These influx of people put a burden on our school system, our social services, our medical, our legal, and those services aren't being appropriately reimbursed to the city by the state. So we look at this and we say, well, how can we deny all these people help? We're not saying we got to deny people help, but Fall River has done its share. Let's see if Wellesley will pick up the ball. Let's see if Newton will pick up the ball. Let's see if Cambridge will pick up the ball. Let's have some other communities step up to the plate. New Bedford, Fall River, Lowell, Lawrence, Worcester, they've basically sucked up the ball and said, we've done it all already. But an interesting thing that happened is that in 2002, a law was passed, special legislation, that restricted the use of the Watuppa Heights site for single-family homes. Now, the city, according to reports, wants to present another plan of 13 houses, that will be built 13 houses for people at the 80% margin, okay? And 13 units built at the 50% income margin. But we have to ask, why? The Fall River Housing Authority has already been authorized by the Department of Housing and Community Development to put out an RFP, a request for proposals, on the building of 50 units of low-income apartments. And we have to say, why? You know, there's a law that says no, it's got to be used for single-family units. But again, you know, the state is violating its own laws. And the city, and this was Mayor Flanagan who did this, in 2011 promised $4 million out of community development money for this project. And recently, Mayor Flanagan said, well, we don't have that money anymore. It went somewhere else. How can we run a city where we make commitments and then we don't keep them? You know, you have to ask yourself that. You really do. So if we get 50 units of low-income housing at the old Watuppa Heights site, it's one of Mayor Flanagan's faults, another one of his failures, because he didn't have the $4 million that we needed for the project. And I know that I wouldn't accept that. And it's time that we stop converting mills, converting old buildings into affordable housing. Let's just stop that altogether. All right? It's time for us to move forward towards a middle-class community, which is very hard to do in a city where the majority of its population is on welfare, food stamps, or some other form of public assistance. And you can't make changes. You know, many of us, I included, grew up in families that received some form of public assistance, whether it be free lunch or reduced lunch or whatever the case may be. But we broke the chain and went and did something. And that's what we have to do. The problem is that Fall River has a great number of people who just stay on the system because it's actually cheaper for them to stay on the system. And they move to places like Fall River because all their social services are met. And we have to stop that. Because again, these social service companies don't pay taxes. And that's why the city wants to go with pay in lieu of taxes, which I think is another great idea. Another one of Fall River's great and mystical properties that we see on a regular basis, political cronyism. And it was announced that BCC appointed Jennifer Menard as the new dean of grants development. I think Mommy just had that position or something similar to that position. And the hiring people here at Bristol Community College said very clearly, because of the political cronyism, we don't want to handle this. So we're going to let President Sprague handle all the interviews. And he handled all the interviews. Now, I wish I would have known at that time, because I would have placed a bet that Jennifer Menard got the job. Because this is political cronyism at its best. Jennifer Menard was hired because of who Mommy was. And we firmly believe that. And if not, it looks that way. And sometimes it's not the actual, but the appearance of the impropriety. And that's what it looks like here. Joan Menard got a job here after she retired from the Senate, making $100,000 and some odd a year, like she needed that, with all her time in as a teacher and a representative and then a senator. And then she got a political job here, making $100,000 and some odd a year, which she barely did anything except make appearances. And we have to say, why? Now she retires, but she stays on as a consultant. And she also stays on at Diamond on the school board. So she's still deriving a pay there. And why is she doing this? I have to ask myself. This is political cronyism at its best. But you'll never see our House or Senate pass legislation which says that if you are a former political elected official or political appointee, if you leave your job or you're voted out, you cannot accept a position with state, county, or municipal entities for 4 years. Because, then nobody's going to have a job. Then we won't be able to give people stuff. And it just looks a little weird because Joan Menard's family seems to be taken care of very well by the Commonwealth and the taxpayer. She has one daughter that's a clerk magistrate or assistant magistrates of the court. Now she has another one that's the dean of grants development over here at Bristol Community College, taking mommy's position. And granted, she may be qualified, and she's coming from UMass Dartmouth. But again, she's coming from one state facility to another with the name Menard after her name. Now, do people need to be vilified because of what their last name is? Do they need to be held to a different standard that others may be held to? Sometimes you have to say yes. I know that Bristol Community College is not an easy place to get a job. I know that for a fact. I know many people who have applied for jobs here who were amply qualified for them, and they were never hired. But a political flunky or a political crony was hired, because that's the way the city of Fall River and the Commonwealth of Massachusetts works, because you elect them and then you protect them. And we can't do that anymore. We have to stop protecting people and giving everybody a job. We are not the employment agency. This keeps bringing up our taxes. And, you know, neither a liberal or a conservative or in the middle, you have to look at what is liberalism doing for Massachusetts right now. And I don't want to go from one extreme to the other and say, well, now we need to become super conservative. But we need to meet somewhere in the middle. We need to be moderates. And we need to say, okay, maybe 4 years is a little extreme on restricting employment for city, county, and municipal jobs after leaving office. Maybe we should go with 2 years. Other states do 12 months. Other states do 2 years. But Massachusetts doesn't do any of that. And we need to do that. Our State Ethics Commission has no power whatsoever. Absolutely useless body. And we see that every day right here in Fall River when we look at some of the things that our city council, our school committee people, and our mayor does. And it's like banging your head against the wall because nobody listens to us. And how come people don't listen to us? Number one, we don't vote. We have some of the lowest turnout rates for voting in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and probably in the country. And if you want to affect change, you need to go out and vote. And I'm going to make it clear, and people don't like me for it, and, you know, I may get tomatoes thrown at me or I may get run down on the road, but just because John Smith gives you a chow mein sandwich or a Portuguese dinner or a nice meatloaf doesn't mean you vote for them. Because if you're just voting because of what they gave you, then your vote is able to be bought, which makes it useless, which makes it futile. Look at the guy who's not spending all that money because, number one, he doesn't have it in his campaign coffers, and number two, he wants you to vote for him because of him or her, not because of the fact that he gave you a chow mein sandwich. That's what's important. And please remember, you do need to vote. Many of our elections are going uncontested this year, but you know what? Just because they're uncontested doesn't mean you don't not go out and vote. And now we have the big news, or semi-big news. Somerset has decided to hire an attorney. They've hired a legal firm to come out and represent them. And they've done something that the city of Fall River doesn't seem to have the capability, the knowledge, or the wherewithal to do. Somerset retained the Boston law firm that's experienced, number one, in gaming and as familiar with the state gaming law. The firm is Constantine and Fury. And they made a deal with them that if they do not get the license and the casino is not built, they get bupkis, nothing, zip, zero, zilch. But if they get a casino and it's built, Somerset has promised them 25% of the take in the first year's sums from the licensing gaming, and then 10% in years 2 through 5 with the option to extend the contract, and all selectmen agreed. Now, some people say, oh, that's not a good idea. Other people say, oh, well, that sounds good. You know, whether you like casinos or not, and you live in Somerset, this was a good deal. Because guess what? If you get nothing, you pay nothing. Fall River can't do that. Why? Because the legal firms we use are politically connected to the law office and the administration. And they always have been for many years, not just with this administration, with many behind it. And that is their life support system, because they can bill $400,000 and do nothing. We've got a legal department that creates over $200,000, $300,000 in salaries, and they don't do anything because they farm it all out to people to do it for them, because they could not litigate a case to save their life. I firmly believe that. And that's a scary thought. But Somerset has done this, and I do believe that today is Friday, June 20th, and I do believe that the Supreme Judicial Court is going to rule today, if not today, it will be Monday, on whether or not the question of whether to repeal legal gaming from the Commonwealth. Which means if that question, that referendum question, passes in November, legal gaming will no longer exist in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And the Gaming Commission was smart in this one, because what they did was they turned around and they issued a license before the Supreme Judicial Court could rule, which kind of puts us on the hook, because they issued a license to the Springfield area for, I believe it's MGM, to open a casino there. Now, you'll notice MGM has not started construction. They haven't done anything yet, but they have the license. Now, the questions that have come up are, if this law gets repealed, what happens to the existing license? And if construction is started, what happens to the construction? Well, we've talked about this in previous shows, and we know that if this law gets repealed, it's very easy for the state to just refund the monies that have been paid to the state for these licenses. Does the state want to do that? No. Will they have to? Most likely. But then the casinos are going to ask, what about the money we've put out for planning, for construction, for architecture, for legal services? Where are they going to get that back? Well, I think they're going to kind of be out of luck. That's going to be kind of what you call the cost of doing business. And that's questionable. We already know that Foxwoods, which had a deal with Fall River and it fell through, which on this show we told you it will fall through. We're being told that we're naysayers, we're so negative. We're not negative. We look at the facts that are out there, we review them, we go over them over and over again, and we investigate what we're looking at. And we knew Foxwoods was already in bankruptcy. They were already overburdened with debt. And even though Scott Butera has said, we're doing a great job on restructuring our debt. Restructuring our debt means they're taking out another loan to pay off a loan. That's all that is. They're just moving the debt around. And we can't do that. And neither can a business. And the problem that we're going to have is with a company like Foxwoods is, as you notice, Foxwoods that owns the casino in Mashantucket, they're on tribal land. You can sue them all you want in a U.S. court. You're not going to get a dime because they're a sovereign nation. You have to sue them in their own court. But Foxwoods that opens up these resort casinos, these commercial casinos, they're a conglomerate of investors. And that's why it's called Massachusetts Crossroads LLC, Limited Liability Corporation. This way they spread the wealth and they spread the poverty. And that's what's happening. Now, for Somerset to hire these attorneys, I think that's a great idea because they're not going to be out any money if they don't get anything out of it. But now Fall River, New Bedford, and Taunton are all in the same boat that they want to vie for a casino. Well, Mr. Mayor, you've had 3 bites at the apple, and each time you brought up worms. You failed. So how many times are we going to keep trying and failing, and how much is it going to cost us to do that? And we have to look at it very, very realistically. Right now, they're not even going to look at issuing a license for Region C, which is the South Coast, until March of 2015. So people have until that date to apply, and that's why all these other cities have jumped on board. The problem we have is November. What happens if it's repealed? And we're putting all our bets into one bucket, and we have to stop doing that. Just like we have to stop, wondering what's going to happen when the spaghetti ramps are gone. When the spaghetti ramps are gone, we have no spaghetti ramps. But we don't have a plan in place from our Office of Economic Disaster, from our city administration, from our city planners. We have nothing in place to say what we're going to do with this boulevard. And that in itself is a scary thought. Are we just going to react instead of be proactive? We have to stop doing that. We have to be a city which is proactive, which plans things, and not take out master plans all over the country and stick them on a shelf. I probably got enough wallpaper there to redo a few rooms with all those master plans. And we've spent millions of dollars for each one, and they do nothing. So talk to your city council, talk to your mayor, and tell them, plan. Please plan for something. And while we're on to planning, I investigated how much money is being sent to Fall River under Chapter 70, which is the money for the schools. And the House has approved $102,900,000 and some odd $1,000, almost $103 million. I don't know what the Senate's approved as of today. I have been waiting to get that amount back. And then both those will meet in what's called a committee to work out the numbers. But if the city is getting $103 million right now, that we know of for sure, it's at least 103, and the mayor's only proposing a $97 million budget for the school department, you have to ask, where's the other $6 million? And we said this on the last show and several shows before. Further investigation reveals that the reason we're given extra money, and this is the explanation we're given, but may not be entirely accurate, some of that money has to go to Diamond, some of that money has to go to Bristol Agricultural, some has to go to the Atlantis Charter School, and now some of it has to go to the new Argosy Charter School. But the thing that the mayor is not telling anybody, and the thing that a lot of people have missed, is that the city is going to get back 100% reimbursement for the Argosy Charter School payouts. So they're not losing anything there. So let's remove that right out of the budget. And let's look at previous year's payouts to the other school systems and find out what's left. Oh, wait, we can't do that either. You know why? Because the city charges the school department for every little thing that the city does. When I went to school in Fall River, we learned. Our classrooms were between 24, 25, and 30 students. Every kid in the classroom knew who the other kid was. We knew everybody who was in the school. We kind of looked out for each other. We kind of beat the crap out of each other. But we had fun, you got into a fight in school. You hit this one, they hit that one, boom, it was over. You were out playing baseball again later. Now the kids don't know who's in their school because our schools are so large. And these large schools were determined to be a failure prior to the city of Fall River completing its first construction. But they still pursued it because they thought, well, if we combine them all in one place, we'll have less expense. Well, yeah, you have less expense, but you also have less learning. And we have to stop that, okay? Are we going to get back small schools? Probably not anytime soon. But we need to work with the school committee and with the administration on developing plans to solve these problems. Everything can't come from I and Chipper standing here telling you it all if you don't do anything. So please, meet with those people. And I have to also look at, with the political season coming up, we're seeing a lot of people starting to take advertisements and planning times. And the mayor has planned one already, and his election season doesn't come up until next year. And Melissa Panchley has done the same thing, and she's held one or is holding an event over at BK's Tavern. That's her father's place, by the way. And in the last election, we had questions about the payment for all the advertisement on WSAR radio. Now the questions are going to become how much you actually paying for the services at BK's Tavern, and then also looking at what you're paying for WSAR Radio. She raised a lot of money in the last election for a school committee position, and you have to ask why. But please, remember what I said earlier. Don't vote for somebody because they gave you a chow mein sandwich or a chicken dinner. And I think I'll close the show out today. We've got about 3 minutes left, 4 minutes, about pay as you throw. I will be the first to admit that yesterday, on June 19th, the Department of Community Maintenance came by my properties and picked up my green trash barrels. I have privatized my trash pickup with a private company. They are going to charge me a decent rate. I won't have to worry about fines. I don't have to sort my trash if I choose not to. And this company already sorts the trash. They sort out all the recyclables. They sort out all the organic waste. And they have a 95 to 99% success rate in their recycling from the trash that they pick up and dispose of. So for Ken Pacheco to say, we need an ordinance that stops these trash haulers from picking up the trash and not recycling it, that is nothing but a way to preserve your pay-as-you-throw fee. And that isn't acceptable. You, as the viewer, you as a citizen of Fall River, you as a property owner in the city of Fall River have options. And you need to look at them. And as a property owner, you need to do it the way I did it. I have to look at the pluses and the minuses and the dollars and the cents. I have 2 of the same size barrels I had before, and it's going to cost me less money than if I filled the old city barrels with pay-as-you-throw bags. And I don't have to worry about one of my tenants missing a bag or putting it in a hefty and getting a fine. And I think that will work out better. The other problem I have, and many other people have it too, is we will not have a separate Department of Waste Management. We will still be with DCM. And again, as I stated in a previous show, I don't believe that Ken Pacheco is going to misappropriate or misuse the funds or the department, but there could be an appearance of that type of impropriety. So I would suggest that the City Council, the Mayor, and Ken Pacheco look at creating a separate Department of Waste Management and letting that be the enterprise department, an enterprise fund department, and they will have to fund themselves. And that's the big problem with pay-as-you-throw, because they do have to fund themselves as an enterprise fund. Therefore, if they don't meet the necessary dollar figures to pay the bills, they're going to raise the price of those bags. And as the price of the bags go up, so does it coming out of your pocket. I want to thank you for watching today. I'm sorry it may seem a little boring. I can't believe I actually was able to go for a half an hour. But thank you for watching. Have a great day, and we'll catch you again on the next show.